Stoughton. Welcome to EMS at C-Level, from my home to yours. I'm joined by Randall Sherman of New Venture Research. Randall, always a pleasure to talk to you. I know you've been buried in data for the last few months, so you must be just coming out from that. But I just wanted to take a high-level look at what you've reported. We put the initial release out on EMS Now yesterday, and there was some interesting stuff there. You know, starting with the significant growth in 2020, 21. What do you put that down to? What do you put that level of growth down to at that? 15% nearly. It's very impressive.
It's amazing. It's a very good year, and I'm really shocked that it was so positive. We were, in 2020 with the COVID coming in, we expected a recession almost to occur. And there was a bit of a downturn, especially for airline industries and retail and those sort of things. But what we didn't anticipate quite for 2021 was the huge reinvestment that would take place in mainly computer systems and servers and all the operational things. This, like, they just wanted to upgrade. And so they really, pretty much the industry went way over in terms of the capacity.
Yeah.
And they were able to kind of fulfill it. And it was like, it came out to be, I think, almost 15% growth, organic growth. And it just, the ODMs were even higher. It was like 18%. And it's like, it kind of points to the fact, well, what they're doing is commodity stuff, all PCs and notebooks and servers, and tablets, and all that.
It's funny, Randall. I was reading what you were saying about the whole kind of work at home thing and the additional computers there, and I just, in my head, I've got this vision of offices full of desktop terminals that aren't being used and laptops being used at home. So you're almost doubling the amount of computers that are out there. What the replacement looks like for those, as people gradually return to work, I don't know. So that's going to be curious going forward, isn't it?
Well, it was a pattern that, we should have anticipated it, but you can't really tell because you don't know with pandemic, how it's going to affect things and volumes and production, work availability, and employment availability, and all that. There was a lot of that really kicked back on the industry. And, I've been impressed with all the contract manufacturers that we work with and how they came up with solutions to that.
Yeah.
And in terms of employment and supply chain, and it just showed me how resilient the industry is.
And imaginative, creative, innovative. I thought it was fascinating. I spoke during 2020, I spoke to maybe 50 CEOs of EMS companies in the EMS at C-Level series. And I've just really started getting back through the same people and talking to them about lessons learned. And, it really is about that innovative culture and that team culture and tenacity of those businesses just to get stuff done and get it out the door. And that tenacity is equally important in this component shortage, I think. So
it is, and the industry is highly motivated. It's like you can go, the OEM industry is a little sleepy in the sense that, they have drivers, but the EMS industry is like, they're totally driven to grow, and they have shown that growth each year. And to be honest, we're looking into the future, trying to estimate, can this sustain itself?
Yeah.
And pretty much we're pretty positive on the 5, 6, 7% growth rate.
Yeah.
And it could be more, but it's like when my colleagues, they said, when you're right, nobody remembers. But when you're wrong,
that's right. You've got to be way wrong for people to talk about it, haven't you? That's always the stuff you get called on. And 12th year in a row, the industry was profitable, 16.2 billion, the highest recorded for, I think you said 36 EMSs and 14 ODMs are amongst that. Solid,
So the industry
solid performance.
It's tipping towards a, I mean, the top 10 control 75% of the revenue in the industry. It's a really high percent. There's a
Is
lot
that
of
75% of the total, or 75% of the top 100, or 75 of the total industry?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
And so, I mean, there's a lot of work down the line, and there's a lot of ways to survive that. But it's a little disturbing to see that, Foxconn, Foxconn is
40%.
4 times the size of Flex,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and literally, yeah, a huge proportion of of that list, of that 75%, more than half is Foxconn. So 39.5%. That's phenomenal. And kind of leads me to my next question, because we see Foxconn investing in factories in the US, factories elsewhere in Asia, factories in Mexico. What do you see as that geographic switch or shift? Is there a kind of China plus one or a decoupling with China sentiment going on? I know China's been challenging with supply chain, particularly as they've shut down ports, as they chase COVID zero, which nobody else seems to be chasing. What do you see in that geographic mix at the moment?
The Chinese, the ODMs, they made the most money last year out of any of the suppliers, mainly because they were lucky. They got a little lucky that everything was, they're replacing servers and upgrading cloud and all that.
Yeah.
So that was good. But I don't think we're going to see a lot of shifting of resources anymore, because everyone's got a little stake in the ground, whether it's Vietnam or Thailand or something, and they got capability and they have advantages to those particular operations. So yeah, I think the day of China being, they're forever going to be the dominant manufacturer.
Yeah,
we can't get away from that. But yeah, I'm amazed at how a lot of mid-tier, I guess they wouldn't be mid-tier to most, but they keep popping up and they keep establishing new operations.
Yeah.
Low-cost regions. So
yeah, and I think those what I'm seeing is a bit of a resurgence in some of the non-China Asia Pacific countries. Malaysia seems to be doing well.
India.
Thailand, India's popping up again and doing better than it has the previous times it's popped up. So that's good.
Yeah.
I think Mexico's going well because it's China in your own backyard to a certain extent. And Eastern Europe seems to be doing pretty solidly, Estonia particularly, plus some of the other countries. So yeah, it's interesting. When you look at the top companies, the companies that are really performing and growing, and if you're looking at that from kind of further down the pile and thinking, well, how do we get up there? I know some have been on the acquisition trail. Is it about having a global footprint? Is it about vertical integration? What is it that kind of separates those companies from the other ones?
Yeah, I get asked this from time to time, and I think about it a lot. The problem is that there's only a few companies that really know how to do this industry, know how to make money, know how to discipline, know how to motivate employees. And the whole idea, it comes from a customer-centric point of view, which does things that ensure customer loyalty.
Yeah.
And it goes above and beyond. And the ones that really know how to take care of their customers, whether it's getting rid of the bad ones and keeping the good ones, and provide services along those lines. Jabil's the biggest and the best example. You work with Katek, and there's others that are that really, well, Creation's doing a good job. They're doing some great expansions.
Yeah.
And they, yeah, I think it makes a big difference. And so there's the customer side loyalty. There's also the employee side of loyalty.
Yeah.
And we want to, it's like you want to treat your employees right, because they will go to the wall for you when it's needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they trust you and they believe in you.
Yeah. And that was proved during the pandemic, wasn't it? I think you're absolutely right. It's that fierce loyalty from the customer base and the fierce loyalty from your team. And if you can achieve that, and you mentioned Jabil as a great example of that, they've pretty much always focused on those two elements, and they're now, kind of pushing through the 30 billion mark and turning a decent margin and doing well out of it. And it's really turning those OEM relationships from being just purchase orders to real partnerships, I guess.
Arm's length kind of thing versus partnerships, true partnerships. So,
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that shows up in the culture of someone like Jabil, is that they're sort of taught that this is the way they do it. And it's like the program manager is dedicated to you and not 20 other customers, which kind of dilutes their effectiveness.
Yeah.
But you can't get away from that. I mean, that's inevitable. But yeah, I mean, I think there are certain companies that just really focus on customer satisfaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Treat the employees right.
Yeah. Yeah, those are kind of the two. It's almost, that's the supply and the demand side, isn't it? Yeah. Taken care of. And how much impact do you think on 2022? And I know it's too early to say, but how much impact do you think the component issues are going to have? And my sense is it's easing a little bit as we get into the second half of the year. What's your anecdotal sense?
Yeah, we got some very agile not program managers, but sourcing managers, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone's running short on this and they have to come up with solutions. The worst solution involves a redesign, because they have new parts and it's a new BOM and everything.
And maybe new approvals and
Yeah, all that, customer upset and all that.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of variables, because you go into it and you got to get the product out and done. And you kind of appreciate these innovators who are able to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And the really good CM companies have that capability.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's down to team, isn't it? It's down to, I think when I look at the component issue and the companies that are doing well, they do have that fierce loyalty from their supply chain team and that tenacity. And as you say, they'll go to the wall for you. But they also have that partnership with customers where, they can have an open and honest dialogue about what's being held up and what isn't, rather than the customer just saying, hey, it's your problem. You're contracted to pick up the bill of materials. Go find it. And it's just not that simple right now, is it? So challenging times. And I think, there's just some very confusing economic pointers, particularly in the US. We have very high employment, and contrastingly, we have very high inflation and the rates of interest going up. Someone recently said on a podcast I was listening to that in the US, we've never had a recession when the employment numbers are this good, and we've never not had a recession when the rise in interest rates and inflation are this bad. Yeah. So one of those habits of like 4 decades has got to be broken. Do you see EMS companies concerned about that, or do you feel that the tech sector is pretty resilient?
Well, it depends on which ones and what region we're talking about. When we're talking about North America, we've got a pretty stable market, and we've got a lot of not just capacity, but the ability to bring to market low volume, high complexity products. Yeah. I mean, that's the real strength for them. When you drift into the high velocity, high commodity types of things, I mean, you just might as well cede that to the Asians who
Yeah.
seem to like to do that kind of work, you know.
Yeah.
But it's working for them. I mean, they really,
Yeah.
I mean, they're making money at it. They really
Yeah.
have managed. So, but it's a kind of the market that we've lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something we can do to recover it, but
Yeah. So it's horses for courses, isn't it? You've got to be in the right business in the right location. And I think those that are hugely successful have a view to all of those areas. So, you know, they may be making some lower volume, high mix in the high labor cost areas, but they've also supported that with, you know, Central America, South Mexico, Eastern Europe, and obviously Asia as well. So yeah,
it depends a little bit on what you want to do. I mean, if you want to be in that high, what am I trying to say? High, not high mix, but high volume, low mix.
Low mix, yeah.
Area. I mean, there's lots of capacity to deal with that, but we're just not seeing suppliers from North America going after it. But the same is true in Europe. You've got some really great products and some great builds, and they're making money. You know, they're very happy with the margins that they're managing and that.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're certainly seeing additional demand come through. I think the EV market's proving really interesting, and it's kind of shaking up the way the car manufacturers manage their supply chain, and they're starting to work direct with EMS companies. So I think there's lots of opportunities going forward. So yeah, exciting times ahead. We'll continue to monitor and watch the industry and talk about it. Randall, thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. The industry really appreciates the data that you deliver and the tenacity you show to get it all together and get it out for us. It's
we'll keep sharing what we find. So I'm happy to talk to you anytime.
Okay, thanks for your time, Randall. We'll chat again soon. Bye for now.